What's going on, YouTube? Small Door here again with another tier list of my making, which we all know mine are obviously mine are the best, and mine are the only ones that matter, Kappa. But this time I'm going to do it on an older game, a game that I think is my favorite game of all time. I don't think it's my favorite game of all time. It is my favorite game of all time, and I think it is, for many people, one of the greatest games I've ever made. And that is Bloodborne. So this tier list is just going to be on all the major bosses in the game, the base game, the DLC, and it looks like from this list that I found, also some of the Chalice, the unique Chalice dungeon bosses. Again, mainly what we are using as our criteria as to what ranks a boss higher or lower is obviously just the sheer cool factor. The mechanics of the boss fight, is it difficult but in an engaging way? Or is it just difficult for the sake of being absolutely difficult and stupid? Lore implications, kind of like how, for me, it's like how cinematic is it, but like still being mechanically cool, or is it cinematically cool, but the fight is really dumb, kind of thing. And it's my favorite game of all time, and we're going to have a wide range of bosses in this game. I know some people who absolutely love Bloodborne, but I actually think the bosses themselves are not the greatest when it comes to From Software's work. So let's get right to it. The order that they have it in makes no sense, but I'm going to try my best to remember. It's been a while since I played the game, maybe a couple years, but I'm going to try to go kind of like in order. So Cleric Beast should be the first boss you face in the game. I am going to give the Cleric Beast a nice, solid B. And the reason why I'm going to give it a B is this. It looks badass. The Cleric Beast looks badass. If it's the first boss you face, it comes jumping down when you're on the bridge, right? It comes boom. And then you're fighting this thing. It's like super loud. It's screeching. Especially at the time, like when you played this in 2015, all the feathers and the fur or whatever, the effects and everything like that. It's got, it's not a very difficult fight. It's not too overly ridiculous. There's no, in my opinion, there's no bullshit in this fight. It's just kind of a big fight. Camera work could use a little work, which is why I'm lowering it, not being like an A tier. Nor obviously, like I said, it's not difficult. It's one of the, the easiest boss fights in the game. I don't think it's the easiest, especially for like when you're fighting it very early on. But even then, it's very simple, but challenging, I feel like, enough for the first boss of the game. Especially for somebody, if you've never played the game before. It's pretty middle of the road. I'm putting it above a C because I think it looks cool. Pretty simple. Okay. I believe the next boss fight really is kind of like a difficulty check pretty early on. And that's Father Gas. I don't know where to put him exactly, but I'm going to put him as an A. I'm putting him A tier. Here's why. I don't know, honestly. Unlike with the Elden Ring tier list that I did, it was pretty obvious kind of like how I can feel the pulse of the game and people's difficulties through Twitter, other social media, kind of like, other YouTube videos of just people playing the game. You kind of already know where everyone's going to rank the bosses. Bloodborne's been around for quite a while, so I don't really know where people rank all these boss fights. I like Father Gas. I think he's fantastic. I think he's an actually incredible fight. I think he's very difficult. I love the two phase. Phase 1, where he's still the hunter, but he's turning. And then when he goes full on beast mode, literally. I also love the fact that this is a fight that, if in the area previous, right, you really scour around, you talk to the girl, you get the music box, you can stun them, right? This is where I think is really cool. You can stun the boss because he's remembering who he is. To me, that's a really cool thing, having the fight. I don't think there's too much. Again, I don't really think there's a lot of BS in the fight. I think it's just challenging. He's very quick. He has ranged. He has melee. The arena can be a little annoying. And again, I don't think he's obviously like super aesthetically like this ultra badass looking like grandiose scale boss fight. But again, cool. He's another hunter, but he's turning into one of the beasts that you hunt. I don't know. It's a lot of fun. I like the humanoid fights, this kind of thing. There's not much else to really say about it other than that. Now, I believe when it comes to the next bosses that you're going to fight, I think it can be one of 3. I know for me, my next boss is Vicar Amelia. Now, for me, she is a solid B. And the only reason she's even as high as a B is because it's on a more grandiose scale. I think it's pretty cool. The cutscene that obviously takes place right before you fight her, because she's still human, and then she, transforms into the giant-ass dog. I think it's really cool. Unfortunately, however, the fight itself, I think, is pretty lackluster. I think it's a pretty lackluster fight. There's nothing really to it. Again, I think this fight is extremely simple, very easy. Aside from, you just have to really watch out for the healing, really is like the main thing. That she doesn't heal too much, and it's another pretty easy fight. Not much to it. I don't know. You just kind of run around. I don't know. Nothing special to the fight, which is why it gets a B. And it gets a B instead of a C. It gets a B, and this is why I'm also putting it below the Cleric Beast, but because it's visually really, really cool. Now, you can either do the Witch of Hemwick, or you can obviously go down to Old Yarnum, and then you can fight the Bloodstar Beast. I'm going to talk about the Witch of Yarnum first, only because there's not much to say about this fight. I think this fight is D tier. It's pretty hard if I want to put it D tier, or if I want to put it straight up trash tier. It is very difficult. There is one fight in my mind that I'm already going to put below this. I really hate this fight. Not because it's hard. The fight is not hard at all. But because it's stupid. It's a really dumb fight. Elden Ring has similar fights with the snail bosses, which I think are stupid also. There's just nothing really to the fight, it's, and you find the 2, you gotta kill the 2 within the same time frame, so they don't like revive each other, and then they go invisible, and then they summon all these other ads, and the arena's dumb. It's a dumb fight. Really, to me, there's like no skill, no nothing to it. It's just, I don't know. Now, the next fight though that you could do, and you could have done these 3: Vigor Amelia, Witch of Hemwick, or the Bloodstar Beast, pretty much in any order. I know a lot of people, however, that I have seen talk about that they think the Bloodstar Beast is an absolute trash fight. I love this fight. I think this fight's fantastic because it's almost like a 3-phase fight, but phase 2 and 3 are very similar. There's nothing really to it other than it gets like more berserk, but I really like it. I love that there's the mechanic of being able to use I don't know what you're using, the lure stuff so you can throw on the ground to make the Bloodstar Beast get distracted and then just get some hits in. You can visceral attack this guy. He's fast. He's not too huge. There's hardly any bad camera work. Except if he happens to get behind the pillar, then you kind of lose auto lock your targeting, but it's not that big of a deal. Visually, this dude is sick looking. I mean, and you can see the blood dripping, and then when he starts getting the poison, think the fight's sick, man. I really like the fight, man. I think it's really fast paced. It's up tempo. You can, I think you can even get a summon for this fight with the DLC. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not gonna really make that matter too much for the fights for any of my orders here. But it's, I don't know. I think that's cool. I like the Bloodstar Beast. I think he's a great boss. Now, I'm trying to really think who's next. It's been a while. If I'm guessing it correctly. Trying to think of order of things. You're gonna go into the nightmare, aren't you? So then wouldn't it be amygdala? Okay. I really want to give amygdala a higher rank than a D, but I can't. I absolutely cannot give amygdala higher than a D, and here's why. One, this is, in my opinion, this was the only fight that truly dropped frames. Like, when you break the arms, it would get super slow-mo. You would see the blood spray and go, it would like auto lag, like the audio would lag. It would get, even though the arena for the fight is massive and there's no ceiling, there's so much that I like about this fight, but then there's so much that I don't like about the fight. The FPS, the lag, and unfortunately, this is one of the worst camera bosses in this game. It is so bad. But I love the scale. I love the aesthetic. I love its moveset. I love the laser beams. Except I hate the jump, the land. You're just like praying, dude. Like, I think that's terrible. I think that's a really shit. I don't know. It's unfortunate. The amygdala is, in my opinion, one of the worst bosses in Bloodborne, even though it's aesthetically super cool and has really cool moves. It sucks. That's just my opinion. Now, some of these other bosses, I'm trying to remember the order as well. I believe, so I know it can't be, I know it's not Ram, I know it's not the one Warren. You can probably, no. So you can do Dark Beast Parl early, but I don't think you probably would. So I think it's Shadow of Yharnam. I believe Shadow of Yharnam's next. Shadow of Yharnam is also a B for me, but it's a high B. So, what I think it's cool about the Shadow of Yharnam, I like bosses that are multi-bosses, but they're not ads. So I don't like bosses with like ads, but I do think like multiple bosses in a boss fight can be really well done. And I think Shadow of Yharnam is actually a pretty good multi-boss fight because there's 3 of them. And the other thing that I like is that they summon the giant snakes, right? And they're all 3 are different, if I'm remembering it right. One's like mostly ranged with the fire, one's kind of got the sword, and one has a mace, I think. Something like that. It's been a while, guys. Remind me down below exactly how it is for the Shadow of Yharnam fight. I also know that this is a fight you can absolutely glitch and cheese, but we're not obviously talking about that. We're talking about the fight itself. I think it's a good fight. I think it's a cool fight. You know, we're fighting the ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings. I mean, come on, how much cooler can that be? That's pretty darn cool. So, I do know next after that would be Rom, because Rom is literally what comes right after. He's the boss of the next zone. If you would have asked me to make this tier list after my very first playthrough, I would have said Rom is trash tier. That's not true. Rom is not trash tier. Rom is my solid C. The reason why Rom is C. Let's talk about the positives. The cool things. This is a giant ass spider. And the spider is cool. The spider does belly rolls and then shoots shit out of the sky, or like from under the water and then down in the sky. You get to the boss fight by jumping off the building into the ocean, whatever. Some dream state moon into water nonsense. The implications as well, because when you beat Rom, that's when the world changes. But it's got a bunch of ads, dude. The spiders are everywhere, and some of these spiders are bullshit. Rom himself can be bullshit because he starts teleporting and just like teleports and immediately starts doing his ranged I don't know. But then it's visually like a super cool looking fight. He's not too hard once you learn the fight, especially if you want to go the canon route. But I don't know. I don't think it's the greatest fight in Bloodborne at all. It's okay. The fight is okay. So now, okay. I'm pretty sure I'm doing these in the right order, actually. A lot of this is kind of just like remembering. I'm ignoring the Chalice dungeon bosses. I'm gonna do them last, actually. So next would be the right time to do Dark Beast Parl. This is an S tier fight. I will never forget the first time I came across the Dark Beast Parl. Because you can come across the Dark Beast Parl earlier if you get captured by the body bag dudes, and then you go to the past version of the jail, and you can fight him then. More than likely, you're going to lose and get your ass kicked, because that's not when you're really supposed to fight him. You're supposed to fight him at this point, after Rom, when you go to the jail in present time. This fight is sick, dude. Visually, I think this is like one of the coolest looking bosses in the entire game, DLC included. Then he has the lightning and everything. He's a giant boss, but I don't feel like this fight really has a lot of bad camera angles. And there are ways to you can critical this boss, you can visceral this boss, you can cripple them and all this kind of stuff. I like bosses where they do have exploitive weaknesses. And this boss definitely has that. But it's still a very challenging boss. This dude is fast. Dark Beast Parl is very fast. He kind of hops around and all that. I think this is like one of the coolest fights. Just straight up. Alright. The One Reborn. This is the Tower Knight. This is Bloodborne's Tower Knight. And, it's a C. This boss is a C. This is the boss of the jail, because Dark Beast Parl is like an optional boss in the jail. This is the boss of the jail, of that zone. I don't like it when you have to run up the zone sides to kill the ads so they don't start shooting you, and you gotta kill them all and just kind of ignore the boss while he's doing this AoE range bullshit. Then he floods the arena, so then you have to run away. And he has two different heads, and I don't know, man. But I'm gonna be saying this about pretty much every boss in this game. It's still visually cool as hell, man. Especially the cinematic too, when he's coming out of the. Ooh. It's dope, visually. But he's got stupid ads. It's just if I did a tier list for Demon Souls, I'm sorry, Tower Knight's gonna be near the bottom of the boss fights. You wouldn't be at the bottom because Tower Knight does have some cool things about him, but the ads, not that. Definitely not that. And yeah, One Reborn, I can't stand ads like that. Maybe it's just me. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about that. But I don't know. Overall, balancing out pros and cons, it's average. All right, who we got next? I'm trying to remember next. You're probably going into the second nightmare, I think. Let's see who's all left. Ooh, I don't know when you would go to Canehurst, actually. We'll do Canehurst after this. Okay, so we're going to have Miko Lash. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk a lot of trash about Mikolash because the fight is just running around. And they're right. So Mikolash gets a D. I'm still going to put him above the Witch of Hemwick, but this fight is stupid. It's honestly really, really dumb. The first couple times you play through the game, or at least when I played through it, I thought it was still kind of cool because he's kind of like taunting you. This dude's running around. He's like, can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. You know, all this kind of nonsense, right? But then subsequent playthroughs, I'm just like, this, honestly, Mikolash is out of all the bosses, even more than the Witch of Hemwick, is the fight that I'm just like, I gotta do this dumb bullshit again. That's this fight. That is literally this fight. I'm just like, you know, and I'm like, you shouldn't have to feel that way in a boss fight. You should be like, all right, let's do this. Because only half of them is a boss fight, and the other half of them is just running away, you know. And you're just chasing the guy, and if you don't get, if you can't find the right drop point to fall in on him too, you know. But as a fight himself, when you are fighting him, he does have some cool moves. He has the tentacle attack. You know, he's got the repulse thing. I think it's a decent fight. If you straight up had to fight him, and he had maybe a little bit more arcane powers, he'd probably be a much higher up on the list. But the whole running away nonsense, to me, that's a terrible thing. I don't know. You let me know what you think. I think Mikolash is trash, which is completely counter the next boss, because the next boss is one of my favorite bosses in the entire game as well, and it's also S tier, and that is Murgo's Wet Nurse. Okay, I'm putting Murgo even above Dark Beast Parl. There's only one other boss left that I'm gonna, maybe two more bosses that I'm gonna put in S tier. Murgo's Wet Nurse only has one flaw for me. The entire fight only has one flaw, and that it's kind of an easy fight. Visually, this thing is badass. It looks like almost like a Ring Wraith 2 from Shadow of Yarnum, except it's bigger. It's got all these like hook claws and everything. Dude's got like the blink shadows, and then he's got the darkness, and then it's got like the what do you call them, clones and whatnot. Atmospherically, thematically, everything about this fight, in my opinion, is sick. It's awesome. It's just straight up awesome. All its moveset is great. You know, like I said, the only thing about this fight that I don't think, like, it's his difficulty, and it's not that it's an easy fight. It's not the easiest fight in the game by far, but once you get to this point in the game, though, because this is kind of towards the end of the base game, you're pretty set, you know. It's not that hard. Murgo's Wet Nurse is not that hard. It's one of the easier fights. Okay, so now let's go to the Cainhurst. There's only one boss there, so Cainhurst has the Martyr of Logarius. This guy's A tier. Some of you might be like, A tier? You gotta put Martyr of Logarius below Murgo's Wet Nurse? Really? You gotta take the arena into account too. The boss fight arena for this fight sucks. You're on the rooftops outside on like a roof, but it's like slanted, and you got the things, and then you have like the chimneys and all this other bullshit in the way. That being said, everything else about this fight I think is sick. He's got a really cool moveset. Its melee moves are cool. Then its ranged cool. So it's got the skull blast. It's got the sickle thing. It's a cool looking boss. And it's challenging. To me, it's got everything. Whereas Murgo's Wet Nurse was like, it's got everything except it's not as challenging. Logarius is like, it's got the challenging part, but then it's lacking. Like, the arena's really bad. Like, it's really bad. And because of that, accidents happen, guys. And believe me, it's definitely happened to me in this fight. I know it's happened to friends of mine. This fight's not the greatest in that regard. But it's got everything else going for it. So, that's where we're going to put it. Okay, what do we got next? The Celestial Emissary. So this guy's going into D tier. Okay. Celestial Emissary is D tier. And the reason why is this. This fight is a joke fight because it's the boss fight right before the real boss fight. There's really nothing to it. I don't really want to talk too much about it because, again, this fight's a joke. You're just killing all the little dudes until you find the right little dude to be hitting, and then it turns into the big dude, and then it's like shoots lasers and whatever. There's literally no challenge to the fight. You know, your first couple times you might be trying to figure out what you're supposed to be doing, and then afterwards it's a joke. I'm going to put it behind Amygdala because Amygdala's executive decision. Amygdala is going to C tier. Bottom of C tier. It's moving up because of the positives that I talked about. Alright, but the Celestial Emissary is the boss before the brightest Daughter of the Cosmos. It's going to go behind Logarius, but A tier. So, if you guys watched my Elden Ring tier list for the DLC bosses, I referenced Meter basically being the brightest of Elden Ring. Because the fight's pretty similar. At least in my opinion. I felt the same vibes. It's this giant, like, celestial monster creature thing. A lot of this thing is pretty cool. That being said, though, it's got some really wonky camera work when you're, like, trying to fight it from its side or if you're attacking from the back. Because then it does the charge moves and then... I don't know. But it's so cool, man. It's got the lasers. It's got a debuff you got to worry about. I mean, it just looks badass, dude. It's like truly one of the celestial horrors that you're from the game. You know, a lot of these other bosses are like not alien. I mean, some of them are. Obviously, the Emissary, Amygdala, whatnot. But like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not quite S tier. Main thing that holds that back for me, like I said, is the camera. Alrighty. What do we want to talk about next? I say we go ahead and get a lot of these unique Chalice bosses out of the way. Most of these are going to go trash, which is the Undead Giant. The Thumerian Descendant. I actually think he's kind of cool. for a Chalice boss. He's going to go D tier. This is actually a decent boss fight, the Yharnam Queen. I'm going to do the Elder trash tier. So I'm going to put her as C, bottom C. Because it's somewhat challenging, you know, for once you get to her. I don't think she's challenging, not compared to some of these other guys. I think the Watchdog is actually the coolest out of all these. I'm going to put him B tier because the Watchdog was the first unique Chalice boss that you fight. And when I'm talking unique Chalice boss, it means you don't fight these guys elsewhere in the game. Because there are actually a lot of Chalice dungeons that the bosses are just other bosses from the game. You'll fight another Amygdala, you know, you'll fight a Rom in like a tiny ass room. And those fights are stupid. But we're not ranking those because they're just the same bosses. But the Watchdog is pretty cool. And it's a pretty good size arena as well. So I think it's pretty cool. It looks really cool. Now we have the Bloodletting Beast and the Abhorrent Beast. Both of these guys, if I recall, are fairly similar. Bloodletting was easier. You're going to go C. Abhorrent is going to go high C. Because Abhorrent is the lightning one, if I recall correctly. Correct me down below, please, because it has been a minute. Because I haven't done the Chalice dungeons in probably like 2 to 3 playthroughs prior since the last time I've even played. But yeah, that one's the challenging one, I think. That's the one that's really, really fast. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do the base game's main bosses first, and then we'll do the DLCs. So Gearman the First Hunter, I think, is actually a very, very cool final boss. He's going to get an 8. He's going to get an S tier. I think Gearman is S tier. He is the final boss. I think the music is so reminiscent of Gwyn from Dark Souls 1. And that it's like a somber, melancholy type track. It's not super fast paced. It's not, super in your face. But it's like, you're fighting because you have to fight, not because you want to fight, right? And that's from both sides. He's got a really cool moveset, I think. The arena is badass. It looks sick as hell. And he's quite challenging. He's not the most difficult boss, even in the base game, but it's still quite challenging. I think he's in a fantastic final boss for the game. Now, if you want to talk about the final secret boss, that would be the Moon Presence, which I do not think is a great boss, but I don't think it's bad. It's going to be low B tier. And the only reason why it's actually going to be this low is because I think its moveset is actually really late. It could have been a lot cooler, right? Because you have this cinematic when you do the right ending, to go to the complete true ending to fight the Moon Presence. And it's just that it's not big. It's this tiny thing that's kind of just squirms around the same arena where you fight Gearman. I don't know, man. I feel like maybe I'm being a little biased and just ranking it low because I was just disappointed in it being like the secret final boss. And it should have just been so much more. I'm going to leave it there for now. And we're going to go over the DLC bosses. So, the first one you can fight, I believe, is Lawrence. But I know for me, my first time when I did the DLC, Lawrence was the last boss I fought. I skipped him completely. Let's talk about the Living Failures. These guys are trash. I'm not going to put them in trash, though. They're my lowest D tier. I thought this fight was stupid. Absolutely stupid. I've beaten the DLC countless times, and I still can't even tell you really what I'm doing in that fight other than just running around, dodging meteors, and just whacking these guys. What? What kind of fight is that? I don't know. I thought it was stupid. Actually, I do think you fight this guy first, which is Ludwig, the Holy Blade. I know people are going to totally disagree with me on this. People are going to be like, Ludwig is stupid bullshit. However, bear with me here. Phase 1 is literally the horse. He'll go up on the ceiling and drop on you and all this kind of stuff, right? It's alright, it's not bad. He's fast, he does a lot of damage, he's got a lot of HP. But Phase 2, man. Come on. Phase 2 is badass. Honestly, if it wasn't for Phase 1, he would probably be my number 1 boss fight in the entire game completely. Because it's cool. I mean, the dude's literally using the Moonlight Greatsword. Like, how much cooler can you get? You cannot get any cooler than a boss wielding that weapon, right? It's insane. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do Lawrence. I think Lawrence is pretty cool. Lawrence is basically like Vicar Amelia, but cooler because it's same kind of concept, except it's actually a challenging fight. I'm going to go ahead and put him here, like mid A tier. He's not as big as Vicar Amelia, but he has still a large boss. You have to obviously worry about the fire. He's challenging. All the bosses in the DLC are challenging, minus the living failures. Visually cool, challenging. It's in one of the cathedrals, which is always a cool arena. Badass fight. I thought it was really, really cool. Lady Maria. It is literally the boss that's on the cover of the DLC art. She's one of the coolest bosses in all of FromSoft games. My only complaint is the same complaint that I have with Murgo's Wet Nurse, really. And that is, the fight is actually not as challenging as it should be. The fight should be more challenging, considering she's the second to last boss in the DLC. She's literally the boss that's holding you back from going to the wharf area, which is the zone itself is bullshit. It is so difficult. She's what's holding you back from that. She's cool. She's a humanoid boss, which I love fighting humanoid bosses. She's super fast. She dual wields. She's got the blood blades. It's cool. It's just cool. Her moveset is sick. She looks sick. The fight is fast paced. It's up temp. It's just, it feels really, really good. We need to do this. I'm gonna do a tier list for Sekiro, and that's gonna be like so many of my reasoning. It's just like, it's nice, fast, great rhythm, everything. And Lady Maria is one of those fights. It's just constant back and forth. Dodge, attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack, 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 dodge, dodge, attack, attack, dodge patterns, things like this. It's really, really cool. But I guess we have to talk about the final boss of the DLC. So, the very first time I played the DLC, at this time I always played these games side by side with my friend. We didn't really co-op at all, but we would just kind of like play side by side, solo runs, but we would play side by side and we would talk to each other about it, like, oh, what would you think? How'd you do that? Blah, 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 blah. We were both stuck on this boss for so long that we were just like, screw it. We decided to go ahead and summon each other and co-op for this fight. First time we ever fought the boss. I probably, to this day, have more attempts on Orphan of Kos over any other boss in any FromSoft game to date. And that includes Radahn, okay? But he is cool. He's also cool. Orphan of Kos is cool. He looks cool. And like, he's definitely not trash tier. He's probably A tier somewhere. I'm going to hold on to this while I'm talking about it. He's coming out of the... It's kind of gross. It's like very gross, right? It's like the spleen or whatever. And he's using... Is his weapon? No. That's not right. Because it's literally in the name of the weapon. I don't remember. He's got the moves where he's got like the lightning up the whole beach. Because you're fighting him on a beach. That's cool. That's cool, man. Like, how cool is that? You're fighting the boss on the beach. He's got a bunch of like... He's got ranged attacks. He's got really fast slam. Close melee attacks. He's got spinning attacks. He's jumps. He's got... Like I said, he's got all the AoE. I think I still got to give him an A tier. I think I still got to put this guy A tier. I'm going to put him right above Lawrence. Right above Lawrence. Because he's cool. He actually really is cool. Because after subsequent playthroughs of the DLC, nowhere near as hard of a time beating the boss. Definitely soloed. I could appreciate the fight a lot more. And it's a really, really cool fight. Anyways, guys, this is my tier list of all the primary main bosses of Bloodborne, DLC included. It is my personal favorite game of all time. Again, this list is obviously my opinion. It's all subjective, but it obviously is the correct list. Let me know how you guys would rank all the bosses from Bloodborne down below. And if anything I said is wrong, I probably threw some lore stuff in there, and it's probably wrong because I haven't played the game in a couple years. Yeah, let's have some discussions, guys. Comment down below, like the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed. I'm going to be doing things like more videos like this. Sekiro's coming up next. All right. Thank you guys for watching.